Hello and welcome, I'm Joshua Barnes and you're watching The World Report. Let's first take a look at our top stories. A highly complex search and rescue operation is ongoing after an American Airlines plane crashed with a military helicopter in Washington, D.C. Both aircraft went into the freezing Potomac River after impact just before 9 p.m, with many, if not all, of the passengers and crew feared dead. At least 19 bodies have been recovered, though none of those rescued are alive. 3 Israeli hostages are being released by Hamas today. Agam Berger has been reunited with her family in Israel, while Arbel Yehud and Gadi Moses are to be freed later. Israel has also confirmed that 5 unnamed Thai hostages will be released, with 110 Palestinian prisoners expected to be freed in exchange. Ahmed al-Sharaa has been named as Syria's president for the transitional period before elections are held in the country. Al-Sharaa, who led the rebel uprising against Bashar al-Assad, is the former leader of HTS, who were part of Al-Qaeda until 2016. US President Donald Trump has ordered the construction of a migrant detention center in Guantánamo Bay. He says the facility at the US naval base in Cuba will hold as many as 30,000 people. We'll continue with that last headline. In a move expected to spark significant debate, President Donald Trump signed an executive order on Wednesday directing the preparation of a large-scale migrant detention center at the US naval base in Guantánamo Bay, Cuba. The facility, expected to house up to 30,000 deported immigrants, is part of Trump's broader crackdown on illegal immigration. Trump also signed the Laken Riley Act, which aims to make it easier for officials to detain undocumented migrants charged with crimes. He noted the act would expand the list of offences requiring mandatory detention. "We're going to keep America safe and secure," Trump said in his announcement while he signed the act. Listen to what the president said.
Today I'm also signing an executive order to instruct the Departments of Defense and Homeland Security to begin preparing the 30,000-person migrant facility at Guantánamo Bay. Most people don't even know about it. We have 30,000 beds in Guantánamo to detain the worst criminal illegal aliens threatening the American people. Some of them are so bad we don't even trust the countries to hold them because we don't want them coming back, so we're going to send them out to Guantánamo.
Joining us first to discuss the continuation of Trump's plan against immigration is Aditya Wadwan, our correspondent. Aditya, thank you for joining us. We're looking at Trump really pressing home his ambitions on immigration crackdown and also deportations. What more can you tell us?
Well, George, if you see, Trump was very vocal about this immigration thing. You know, he said that during his election speech, he had said that on the first day of my joining as President of the United States of America, he will sign an executive order to drive all the illegal immigrants who have been living in the United States of America. As per him, they are due to this illegal migrants, crimes are happening in the United States of America. And you know what the latest, what he has said, that he'll make a detention center for the illegal immigrants at the Guantánamo Bay. You know, let us just put this into perspective. You know, in Guantánamo Bay, other prisoners of the United States of America are kept. You know, global terrorists which America catches or arrests, they are kept in Guantánamo Bay for further interrogation. You know, it is a very well-known fact that the Central Intelligence Agency of the United States of America, Guantánamo Bay is a place where CIA officials often interrogate the global terrorists that are on the US watch list dog. And you know, Donald Trump now announcing that a detainee center would be built at the Guantánamo Bay is a very serious thing in this regard, you know, because this tantamounts to the fact that the illegal immigrants, this tantamounts to the fact that Trump's hardline approach toward illegal immigrants is very evident by his nature, because since he has declared that he will get the detention center developed at Guantánamo Bay, means that he is in a hurry to drive all the illegal immigrants who have been living in the United States of America. Yes, John.
Also joining us to discuss this latest development is Ambassador Mahesh Sachdev, who is a former diplomat. Thank you, Ambassador Sachdev, for your time. I want to build on what Aditya said there in terms of the previous use and current use of Guantánamo Bay for housing some of America's largest characters, prisoners, in terms of terrorists and whistleblowers, etc. What message does this send out about his sort of potential disdain for immigrants, using specifically Guantánamo Bay to hold up to 30,000 people? While we get Mahesh Sachdev's line sorted there,
I can hear you, but can you hear me?
Yes, Ambassador Sachdev, I just want to build on what our correspondent said there in terms of using Guantánamo Bay, which has housed some of America's most dangerous prisoners. The fact that migrants are now potentially going to be placed there, what message does that send from Donald Trump in regards to what he thinks about migrants?
I think it's a message with several components. Firstly, it drives on the campaign to show that Trump administration is extremely serious and bold-faced about this. They don't care about any other impediments or public opinion related issues, and they would do what they need to do against the illegal immigrants. Secondly, I think there is a message of deterrence. The new potential immigrants who still want to make it would have to think again. It's not going to be United States detention facility. It is going to be a detention facility well known and notorious for human rights abuses, etc., etc. So that would act as they would think, I imagine, would act as a deterrence. Thirdly, it will also send a message to Cuba, who Cubans believe that this whole thing about occupation, naval base at Guantánamo Bay is illegal. It'll reinforce Trump's profile against Cuba, built on Trump 0-1-10 earlier, and it'll also send a defiant message to the liberals at home in United States that this administration doesn't care about legal and other recourses.
Yes, sorry to interrupt, Ambassador Sachdev. I'd like to bring in our second guest, Sumit Peer, to discuss the legalities. Sumit Peer, a political commentator. Is this legal, firstly? Can Trump legally migrate 30,000 people to Cuba?
Josh, thanks very much for having me on your show. Always a pleasure. Look, if you look at the news, what we are discussing, there are two connotations of it. One is illegal migrants. Second is dangerous criminals as illegal migrants. I want you to quote President Donald John Trump when he said in one of the campaign there are around 70,000 military-aged men and women from China who have infiltrated US in the disguise of illegal migrants. There are some people from Russia who have infiltrated US in disguise as migrants, and there are also some people from Mexico who are also infiltrated as migrants. So this combination of 70,000 Chinese, a few thousand Russians, and few thousand Mexicans who have, and even some Cubans are there, who are basically criminals or military men or notorious gangsters who have infiltrated just as pretending to be a illegal immigrant. Now, when Trump talks about Guantánamo Bay, he's talking about those people. If you identify something within those set of people, because they are not normal illegals, they are not the people who are looking to go for a living there or have a better life in the United States of America. They have a nefarious intentions of bringing down America. For such kind of people, you will be sending them to the Guantánamo Bay. And look, Josh, there is one thing. If you they told us there are 18,000 Indians which are illegal. Our External Affairs Minister, Dr. Jaishankar, said immediately, we'll do the verification, we'll take them back. But look at the history of China. China never ever takes any Chinese back. They say, we don't know. I mean, we don't know them who they are. There are countries who will never ever take their immigrants back, and China is number one in them. And the biggest problem with the security of United States of America is today People's Republic of China. So when you are with a situation wherein even if you identify illegal and the country says, look, buddy, I'm not going to take it back, I don't know who he is, though they damn well know this, they are Chinese and they're sent there for a mission. For such people, you have to hold them long, you have to hold them indefinitely, or you have to keep them away from the normal society. So this is not for normal immigrants. This is for those immigrants which have those military backgrounds or who have those nefarious criminal backgrounds who are infiltrated in US under a very concerted vision and mission. Now, if you look at the US legal system, as per Patriot Act, and for the powers which are bestowed by the drop-down authority and all, these are the two powers which are with the President of the United States of America. Under these powers, and if it is, you can prove that these are dangerous people, nefarious people, criminals, PLA, that is Chinese army, I am moving them to Guantánamo Bay. That is possible, but a normal immigrant who has there come for just for a life and livelihood, you cannot move them to Guantánamo Bay. That is a thin distinction line, Joshua, between the two. We have to see how do the things fit in between the two. That's what my take on this is.
Yes, Ambassador Mahesh Sachdev, I want to bring it back to the opinion within the United States. We've seen something similar to this in Europe recently. Giorgia Meloni in Italy has set up camps in Armenia. There was, of course, a lot of backlash within Italy. Do you think we might see something similar across the waters in America with public disdain for sending such a large amount of people, criminals or not, to Guantánamo Bay?
That's an interesting question, and I think you might also like to cite UK's decision to use Rwanda as a base for illegal African migrants. But if you delve into history, you would note that more than 1 million Japanese were interned on the mainland of the United States during the Second World War after Pearl Harbor. And their treatment was subject to much heartburning later on because this was pure racism. Japanese of American nationality were interned into camps which were very basic, and they were treated rather harshly. So there is a certain echo to it. And while I think the pendulum has shifted a bit towards the right in the United States in the last 10 days or so. But I imagine that eventually liberals are going to use all sort of subterfuge, filibuster in the Congress and other devices to try and soften this kind of immigration excess. But then we'll have to wait and see. The numbers are huge, as we are told that there might be up to 11 million illegal immigrants. And there are all sort of things to be said. But I would also like to add here that many of the employers, particularly in South, of the menial jobs, would miss not having illegal migrants, because they were cannon fodder as far as low-cost labor was concerned. And I think now that Trump wants America great again, and manufacturing hub, etc., the workers would be needed. America does have a serious situation with regard to low unemployment, and thanks to the economy doing well, this may prove to be an undoing of America by hitting a self-goal eventually on the economy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Mahesh Sachdev. Also, thank you to Sumit Peer. Just a correction there, Italy's immigration deal has been agreed with Albania and not Armenia. But we now move on to our top story of the day. And a mid-air collision near Washington between a passenger plane and an army helicopter has left multiple people dead. The impact split the plane in two. While 19 bodies have been recovered so far, none of them are alive. Here is what we know so far about the tragedy.
A devastating mid-air collision near Washington, D.C. sent a passenger plane carrying 64 people crashing into the icy Potomac River after striking an Army helicopter. So far, multiple bodies have been recovered as emergency teams search the freezing waters for survivors. The collision occurred in the night when PSA Airlines Flight 5432, operating as American Airlines, was approaching Reagan National Airport and collided with a U.S. Army UH-60 Black Hawk helicopter. The impact split the plane in two, while the helicopter overturned in the river. Authorities are investigating as rescue crews search in freezing waters. Reagan Airport is closed until Friday, with flights diverted to Dulles. President Donald Trump called it a terrible accident, praising first responders. Many others have also commented on the tragedy.
You know, when one person dies, it's a tragedy, but when many people die, it's an unbearable sorrow. It's a heartbreak beyond measure.
This is a difficult day for all of us at American Airlines, and our efforts now are focused entirely on the needs of our passengers, crew members, partners, first responders, along with their families and loved ones.
Investigators are working to determine what led to this fatal night over Washington, D.C. Wichita will hold a citywide prayer vigil Thursday at noon for those affected by the tragic mid-air collision. Bureau Report, NewsX.
Let's now take a look at some news stories from across the Indo-Pacific region. Dozens of refugees who arrived in Australia by boat a decade ago have been affected by the Trump administration's refugee program freeze. A 2016 deal with the Obama administration permitted the resettlement of up to 1,250 refugees in the US, with 1,106 having been resettled. The Australian government is determined to deter boat arrivals ahead of elections. Israel has urged Australia to take stronger action against rising anti-Semitism. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese affirmed his government's commitment to addressing recent attacks. New South Wales police reported 10 arrests for anti-Semitic incidents. Albanese has established a federal police task force to investigate hate crime. Thailand's 609-kilometre high-speed railway connecting to China through Laos is now expected to begin by 2030, nearly a decade later than planned. Over one-third of the segment linking Bangkok to Nakhon Ratchasima is complete, with the full line set to be operational by 2030. The project is part of China's Belt and Road Initiative, boosting logistics and trade ties with China. Staying in China, and their iron ore imports are expected to fall to 99.5 million metric tonnes in January. This is the lowest since June 2024. Thermal coal imports may drop 26% to nearly 28 million tonnes, larger than past reductions. Iron ore prices remain stable at over $100 per tonne, while thermal coal prices hit nearly 4-year lows. More than 70 Rohingya refugees landed in Indonesia's Aceh province, facing initial rejection from local residents. A wooden boat carrying 40 men, 32 women and 4 children arrived in Perak after negotiations allowed them to disembark. The Rohingya have long fled persecution in Myanmar, with over 2,000 arriving in Indonesia in 2023 alone. Philippine priests accused of sex abuse remain active in monastery, according to bishopaccountability.org, which identified 82 clergymen with allegations against them. At least 7 of these priests continue to serve in parishes despite calls for accountability. Cardinal Pablo Virgilio David announced the establishment of an office to protect minors, but concerns persist about the lack of action against the accused clergy. Deadly aerial assaults have escalated the war between Russia and Ukraine. A Russian drone strike on a Soviet-era presidential bloc in Sumy has killed 4 people and wounded 9, according to Ukraine's Interior Ministry. Meanwhile, Ukraine has launched drone attacks deep into Russia, targeting energy and military sites. Here's the latest.
Deadly aerial assaults have escalated the war between Russia and Ukraine. A Russian drone strike on a Soviet-era residential block in Sumy of East Ukraine killed 4 people and wounded 9, Ukraine's Interior Ministry reported. Meanwhile, Ukraine launched drone attacks deep into Russia, striking energy and military sites. Russia's defense ministry said it intercepted 104 Ukrainian drones, but one hit an oil refinery in Khastovo, sparking a fire. Petrochemical giant Siber confirmed debris from a downed drone ignited the blaze, though no casualties were reported. In Russia's Belgorod region, a Ukrainian strike killed a 2-year-old child and his mother, injuring the father and sibling. Ukraine's security service also claimed responsibility for hitting an oil pumping station and missile warehouse in Tver. With long-range strikes intensifying, the war's reach continues to expand. Bureau Report, NewsX.
Now for some updates from across the world of business. US President Donald Trump has signed a legal settlement. This has seen Facebook and Instagram owner Meta pay roughly $25 million. Trump sued the social media giant and its chief executive Mark Zuckerberg in 2021 after his accounts were banned. In July 2024, Meta lifted the final restrictions on Trump's Facebook and Instagram accounts. This occurred in the lead-up to the US presidential elections. Finland's Nokia has reported a stronger than expected 38% rise in fourth quarter adjusted operating profits. This rise was driven by higher sales of telecom equipment to mobile operators in North America and India. The company has forecast an upbeat 2025, however net sales have risen 10% to €5.98 billion, beating estimates of €5.74 billion. US economic growth has likely slowed in the fourth quarter. This slowdown is due to a surge in imports. Also, a strike at Boeing has hurt spending on aircraft. However, strong domestic demand will probably keep the Federal Reserve on a shallow interest rate cut path. Microsoft shares have fallen in Europe. This drop came after the company issued a downbeat forecast for its cloud business. Meanwhile, Facebook parent Meta shares have risen after beating expectations. Investors have been scrutinising the company's spending on artificial intelligence. Swedish fast fashion retailer H&M reported weaker than expected fourth quarter sales. This was partly due to a late Black Friday. However, the company has stated that sales were up 4% in December and January. This indicates a better start to the new fiscal year. The third round of hostage releases since the ceasefire deal begins in Gaza. Agam Berger, the first of 3 Israeli hostages due to be released today, has been freed and is now with her family. Apart from the 3 Israeli hostages, Hamas will also release 5 Thai nationals. Following this, Israel will then release 110 Palestinians held in Israel prisons as part of the deal. Here are some more updates.
Hamas has handed over Israeli woman hostage Agam Berger, an Israeli soldier, as part of the third exchange of hostages. The other 2 Israelis and 5 Thai captives are slated for release later today under the ceasefire deal aimed at ending the Gaza war. Berger, dressed in military fatigues, was paraded by Hamas terrorists on a stage in Jabalia in the northern Gaza Strip before being handed over to the International Committee of the Red Cross officials. Earlier, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office identified the 3 Israelis to be freed Thursday as Abel Yehud, Berger and Gadi Moses, adding that 5 Thais held in Gaza would also be freed. Following the release of the hostages, Israel is to release 110 prisoners, including 30 minors in exchange. As per Netanyahu's office, the next swap on Saturday will see 3 Israeli men released. Amid the ceasefire, the truce has allowed truckloads of aid into the devastated Gaza Strip, where the war has created a long-running humanitarian crisis. The ceasefire deal is currently in its first, 42-day phase, which should see 33 hostages freed. The Thai hostages are not included in that number. The third and final phase of the deal should see the reconstruction of Gaza and the return of any remaining dead hostages. Bureau Report, NewsX.
That is all we have time for, but we'll be back shortly with more of your latest international news.